Okay, right, we're going to be going live in 3, 2, 1.
We're off. Good afternoon, everybody. And can you hear me? Yeah, great, thank you. And welcome to the Independent Planning Commission's public meeting for the Mingara Recreation Club Senior Housing at Tumbi. And I first wanted to thank you all for taking the time to come and speak to us this afternoon. I first want to read a short opening statement and then we'll get started with the speakers. I would like to say that I'm speaking to you from the Darkinjung country, and I acknowledge the traditional owners of all the countries from which we meet today, and pay my respects to their elders, including any of those who might be in the audience. My name's Sue Ellen Fitzgerald. I'm the chair of this panel, and I'm joined by my colleague, Alex O'Mara. We've checked for conflicts of interest between ourselves and this project, and none have been identified. Our role here is to decide whether this project should go ahead, and if so, under what conditions. We'll consider the project application, the Department of Planning's assessment, all of your written and verbal submissions today, and all relevant planning laws and policies. Everything that we review will be up on the Commission's website for your review, should you wish to. I want to just reiterate today that we're here to hear your views about the proposal for senior housing at Mingara Recreation Precinct and its impacts. Also to thank everyone who's made a submission so far. We have already had submissions, and I want to assure you that we'll be reading all of those. I want to hear your thoughts today on the department's assessment and its recommendations, and also the proposed draft conditions, which are up on the web. We want to hear your views if there's any of those conditions that could address some of your concerns. Just by way of housekeeping, we want to make sure that everyone has a chance to be heard. So respect for all speakers, of course, courtesy in listening to others' points of view, respect for our hardworking Commission staff. I aim to keep to the time schedule to make sure that everyone gets a chance to speak and that we get out on time. I'll introduce each speaker as is their turn. A bell is going to sound from the back. Brad is going to sound the bell when there's 1 minute left. And then a second bell will sound at the completion of your time. Thank you, Brad. Beautifully rung. That's right, I'm finished. If you've got any speaking notes or a presentation, we'd be pleased to read those afterwards, and they can be given to Brad or Talia from the Commission. Anything you give us, I just wanted to reiterate, will be made public on our website. Stu has mentioned that today's event is being filmed, and it's also going live on the Commission's YouTube page right now. So let's get started. Our first speaker is Mrs. Margaret Borthridge. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Am I clear enough?
Yeah.
Okay,
yep.
Thank you. I'm a life member of Terrigal Trotters Running Club and have been a member of Terrigal Trotters since 1984. And I'm also a long-term member of Mingara Regional Athletics. Mingara is not just a small regional athletics track that caters to little A's once a week. We are a strong community that is made up of volunteers, coaches, juniors and senior athletes, state and national representatives, through to an Olympic gold medalist. We have high-level athletic coaches, and that attracts many athletes to our club. We have walkers, runners, both sprinters and distance, field athletes and footballers who attend training several nights a week. Tuesday night is one of our most popular nights for training, with high numbers of athletes, both junior and senior, coaches, parents, and everyone drives a vehicle. This is normally a particularly busy night. However, last Tuesday night, I arrived at 5:45 p.m. and I counted 150 vehicles. By the time I entered the track, there were approximately another 30 people who came in after me. And this was a particularly quiet night last Tuesday, being winter and a lot of people were away. More people arrived while we were training. Now, our training normally finishes around 7, but from 6:45 to 7, the footballers arrived for their training. When we left, just after 7, there were well in excess of 200 vehicles on a very quiet night. Friday nights is Little A's, with hundreds of vehicles needing access to parking. Apart from the children participants, there are the parents who have young children and babies to carry or push strollers. Weekends, we have competitions with people travelling from Sydney, Newcastle and surrounds, and hundreds of vehicles needing access to the parking. We also host school carnivals, country championships, and the Relay for Life, which attracts over 1,000 participants, and the car park is at full capacity during these times. When these large community events are held, people need close access with the parking, as people come with their tents, equipment, eskeys, and can make multiple trips to their cars. Having just a drop-off spot doesn't work if there is just one adult with young children and they have things to carry and they can't be expected to park kilometres away and walk in with equipment and young children in strollers. The general car park for the Mingara Club is often full at weekends, and without our current car park, people could be forced to park in the residential streets, which is a distance away. And I couldn't imagine the residents would be very impressed if their streets were cluttered with the overflow. Another concern with the proposed building is the proximity of it to the track. At evenings, we have lights, microphones, a lot of activity in and out, and we have loud cheering. Having a car park to buffer the noise from the proposed residents is essential, as we do not want any residents to start complaining and wanting a shutdown for our evening activities. Access to close parking, as we currently have, is what makes Mingara Regional Athletics the ideal location for major athletic events, and it would be devastating to lose these events due to lack of parking. Devastating not just to us, but also to the community. Close access to parking for hundreds of vehicles at Mingara Athletics Track is absolutely essential, and it should not be taken away from us. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here today.
Thanks, Ms. Birch. Thank you. Kay Lovey.
Supporting material.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kay Lovey. I'm the former president of Central Coast Athletics in 2000, and I'm representing the Central Coast Athletics Track Committee. Our major concerns are the parking, traffic and safety, the removal of the independent adjacent grass parking severely impacting the future management of and use of the facility. The land is not vacant. It is used and has been used for 25 years. It is often applied as, it is a critical infrastructure that allows the athletic facility to function safely for competitions, carnivals, soccer and schools. We support Glengara Village's impact of senior housing and the traffic report. The history of the track is a joint funded public facility on Mingara's land. Mingara's proposal stated, Mingara will contribute the land, internal access roads, parking facilities and full financial burden associated with the ongoing cost. This is Mingara's commitment and obligation. State significant states note no identified parking or overflow parking areas. Environmental impact statement, traffic report and traffic management site master plan with adjacent car park has not been considered. I have viewed these under GIPA and drawn an impression and is given to IPC. Regional Development Committee met with the RTA, Police and Council in Newcastle in 1998. It recommended all-weather parking up to 150 vehicles adjacent to the athletic facility and preserving the Beckingham Road for future development. Wyong Council DA assessment in February 1999 states, use of the club car park, assessment of parking is not agreed with. Note, plans indicated 430 grass overflow is available, monitoring of the first stage, and will assist in determining actual parking requirements for the total athletics facility and can be reviewed in stage 2. Council stamps the track plans only because funding is only for the track. Track is then subdivided off on a separate land title to protect public funding. Council adopted the traffic master plan, which included the car park. Council applied conditions of consent to ensure compliance with assessment when built on the land. Condition 7 was the Beckingham Road corridor. Condition 8 was the 300 adjacent car parking spaces, 150 hard surface and 150 grass overflow. Condition 9 was the footpath cycleway to Beckingham Road. State significant states would not result in an inconsistency with the athletic track consent. This implies the removal of conditions in seniors housing, yet my understanding is you cannot vary the points of a condition of consent. This action severely restricts community accessibility to a public asset and ability to host major and regional events with no athletics car park built after 25 years. The inconsistent precinct parking allocations. I've handed out around this diagram. Basically, what I'm saying there is there's been double counting. Traffic absorbs the athletics track's 300 spaces into the general club shared car parking in seniors housing, which is the first column. Athletics parking provided in the childcare DA assessment shows athletics on the grass and 0 places. The childcare parking table shows that there is 415 parking spaces required. But Council further reduces that amount by 639 spaces, leaving you with only 776 spaces. The physical loss. When you take 300 spaces away from 760, is 476 spaces that is only available for the complete shared club parking for all businesses, venues on the site. Flawed assessment methodology, inadequate data collection based on the hotel DA traffic study conducted in March 2022 with COVID impact. Omitted peak periods, not just one Friday night. It's for 1 hour. The times vary daily. and large numbers are regular events any day of the week, as we just heard. Not comparable to other New South Wales licensed clubs, often in excess of 1,500 car spaces. Grass overflow, 96 spaces, which are near the Wyong Road. When you look at the bottom diagram of this display, you'll see them numbered. It is this one here. It is, the 96 spaces are gated, which means locked. They are removed. They're not available 24/7. The Athletics rejects this on safety issues. It is a PMF flood zone and should not be accessed. Table indicates this is not equivalent adjacent parking. No community precinct-wide parking assessment has been done. No car park was built for the hotel, childcare or gym, and nearly all are absorbed in the shared parking. No attendee figures for the 100 athletics and 125 swimming carnivals that are held yearly. Conditions 7, 8 and 9 of the consent are enforceable and not met. Athletics are seeking formal advice. Misleading, as only 3 of condition 8 points were delivered, 5 remain outstanding. The land title of the regional athletics track indicates easements for a car park and footway of the Bowling Green car park attached. Athletics has never used that car park. The approved childcare and 5-lot subdivision highlight further inconsistencies. In 2025, those applied easements have been removed. Condition 8 still is not complied with. State significant states would not result in an inconsistency with athletic track consent. These inconsistencies exist. The intent of consent and the vision for the regional facility to safely function has not been met or addressed by Council. The 5-lot subdivision, the gym, hotel, childcare, all assessed with athletics not part of the shared parking, athletics on the grass. Council states the proposed subdivisions does not alter or increase the demand for additional car parking spaces, and the improved parking on the site will remain unchanged. The car parking is satisfactory. The timing of the subdivision raises questions, as senior housing is not being treated as a future development. Subdivision approval may be a separate planning process, yet it demonstrates that significant changes to the land holdings have already occurred before the Commission has determined whether the permanent loss of land associated with the track facility due to seniors housing development is appropriate. The Commission should therefore consider the community planning implications of these approvals and ensure the future needs of the athletic facility are fully considered before any further development occurs on the land that has historically supported its operation of this public funded facility. We'd like to thank you for being here today, and other members of the committee will address other issues in their talks. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Robert Fulcher.
Hello, my name's Rob Fulcher. I'm speaking on behalf of the Mingara Village Residents Committee, representing 350 next-door neighbours to this development proposal. Overall, we're of the opinion that the development in its current form should not be approved. We do not object to the general idea of providing appropriate seniors housing on the site in a manner that does not have the adverse impacts on the community that this proposal does. We have several areas of concern. One is the location. We do not believe that the project is well located. It will house 350 to 400 people without any direct access to any public road. 400 people without direct access to and by emergency services. It's not near a transport hub, and it's serviced only by infrequent and indirect buses going to Tuggerah, Gosford and the entrance. We are also concerned by the height, bulk and scale of the development. The only locations on the Central Coast area that involve anything like 7 stories are in the major commercial centres of the entrance, Tuggerah, Terrigal and Gosford. The adjacent Glengara village involves a dwelling density of 17.5 dwellings per hectare, including 313 single-storey villas. This proposal has a dwelling density of 86 dwellings per hectare. It's more than 4 times as intense. We believe that that type of density is not suited to the nature of Tumbiumbi and nearby suburbs. The developer states that it is acknowledged that the proposed building heights and floor space ratio exceed the limits prescribed by state housing policy. But no attempt has been made to justify these variations. So how are they justified? Car parking. We share the concerns of the community about the loss of convenient parking for the regional athletics track. We disagree with the department's opinion that the parking requirements of the track can continue to be accommodated by the existing all-weather parking in the Mingara precinct. And indeed, the aerial photo in figure 8 of the department's own assessment clearly shows that the full capacity has already been reached. On the date that photo was taken, there were 350 cars parked in the overflow area, and the sealed car park is full. But the Early Learning Centre and the hotel had not been built at the date of that photo. The applicant has nominated 169 additional spaces in the Mingara precinct. We object to the location of these proposed overflow parking spaces on flooding and convenience grounds. They are not conveniently located for the athletics track. On the 31st of May this year, the overflow areas were flooded and boggy and were not fit to be used as car parking. Yet it was a beautiful sunny day, perfect for athletics events. We strongly believe that the proposed overflow areas are not a practical option. Another issue is the continued use as seniors housing. We were pleased to note in the department's recommendations that there were restrictions on title to ensure the site will continue to be used for seniors housing. But the wording of the restriction contains the clause: the restriction must nominate council as the authority to release, vary or modify the restriction. There's no definition of any circumstances that might lead council to justify any change. We believe that this loophole needs to be removed. Our other major concern is traffic. My colleague, Ken Moon, is the next speaker representing Glengara Village, who will detail our concerns with the traffic impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fulcher. Mr. Moon, Kenton Moon.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ken Moon. I'm a resident of the Glengara Retirement Village, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Glengara Village Residents Committee. Just by way of background, prior to my retirement, I had over 40 years' experience in traffic engineering working with the Roads and Traffic Authority, with my last position being the Land Use Planning and Assessment Manager for the RTA for the Sydney region, and that involved managing a team of planners and traffic engineers to assess traffic generating developments that were forwarded to the authority under the old SEP 11 and providing advice and recommendations to the consent authorities. I'd also like to point out that the inspection carried out by the Department of Planning, Housing and Infrastructure took place in January 2005, which everybody would be aware would be during school holidays. So I believe they did not get a true indication of what the traffic conditions are around the site. I have reviewed the traffic report prepared by their consultant Traffics and have some major concerns with some of their findings. Now, first of all, they indicated that they were using the 3 nearby retirement villages. One was at Bonnells Bay, Kincumber and Wombrel to determine the traffic impact for their application. At no time, even though despite repeated request, we were never given any information as to the size of these villages, whether they were relocatable homes, freestanding villas, or whether they had care apartments or the like. They also did not give us any information as to where their site access was it being close to any major roads. So looking at that, they also indicated that they did not generate any traffic in the morning peak hour. Why they didn't pick Glengara or Foresters Beach, I don't know, given the fact that Glengara is adjacent to the proposed development. Consequently, Glengara undertook its own traffic counts using a company called Austraffic, and these counts were undertaken at the end of November, early December 2025. And excluding the Jager Road site, the Glengara or the Hansons Road entry, it generated in the average of 892 vehicle movements per day, with 111 of those during the peak period between 7 and 9 a.m. Now, I believe that these figures should have been used or could be used by Traffics in determining the generation from this proposed development. They also made an assumption that 70% of the traffic from this development would travel in a westbound direction or northwesterly direction towards Tuggerah, with 30% travelling to the east. I believe that this is incorrect, and a more realistic figure would have been 40% travelling to the west and 60% to the east. Now, I base this on the fact that the nearest shopping centres which provide essential services are at Killarney Vale, which is approximately 5 minutes drive away, and Baddo Bay Village, which also has the 3 major supermarkets, banks, specialty shops, as well as medical facilities. And to do this, they would have to travel via the internal roadway in Mingara car park, which then increases the potential for vehicle pedestrian conflict, through the roundabout at Hansons Road, Mingara Drive, then use the existing traffic signals at Wyong Road and Mingara Drive. Now, I do acknowledge that in their traffic report for the modelling of the intersection, they say the intersection operates at a level of service C and D. However, when you look at the raw data for that intersection, the southern leg, which is the Mingara Drive leg, it operates under most scenarios at level of service F. Now, level of service F in the old traffic engineering side of things means the intersection is operating at or above capacity and needs some remedial work to address that situation. Why they didn't look, I also suggested they look at split approach phasing, and why that was never looked at, I do not know, and particularly because the Department of Planning in their comments, they didn't ask for that, nor did the Transport for New South Wales, which surprises me given that Transport for New South Wales just undertook split approach phasing at the nearby intersection of Berkeley Road and Wyong Road. So in their final statement, they indicate that this particular development would not have any adverse impact on the surrounding street system, and that they would not be responsible for either contributing or undertaking remedial works, and that they believe that the matter was one for the state government and also for council to do. So for these reasons, I would ask that the application currently before the Planning Committee not be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moon. Mr. Daniel Samet. Sorry.
Hi, I'm Daniel Samet, on behalf of the S Stable, which is the club that I coach, and against the parking facilities that are proposed. So I coach about 15 sprinters that compete in professional athletics all around Australia. I don't earn anything from it. It's all passion. I love athletics. I've been in the sport since I was 2. In the past 12 months, I've also assisted with some of the upcoming Central Coast Mariners, Newcastle Jets, Newcastle Knights players. I just love athletics. My background in Central Coast Athletics goes back to the 80s. My dad was a president of Woy Woy Little Athletics, where our family is lifetime members of the Woy Woy Athletics. Fast forward to the year 2000, and the sprint group that I was training under were invited to train at the Mingara athletics track prior to its official opening. We had a Paralympian that was training with us, getting ready for the Sydney Olympics. We met the then CEO of Mingara, John, I can't remember his surname. He opened up the car park to the facility, apologised for the grass area that we actually parked on, but then went on to explain that the proposal had a sealed car park for the athletics facility. 26 years later, we're now fighting for that area. It hasn't been sealed. We're still using that area. That is incredibly frustrating. My athletes currently train at Mingara 2 to 3 times per week. Our sessions use a lot of sleds, resistance equipment, training adaptations, blocks. Close parking to the venue is essential for what we do. Even though changing that car park will annoy me, I don't want you to think about me when you're making this decision. I want you to think about young Chloe, and I'll explain her story a bit later. Last season, we were fortunate enough to have an incredible, successful season. We had 17 wins across New South Wales, Tasmania and Victoria, including the prestigious Stall Gift. My athletes travelled to over 15 athletics tracks: Hobart, Devonport, Burnie, Waverley, Newcastle, Sydney, Cobden, Mortlake, Stawell, Dubbo, Melbourne, Castlemaine, Bendigo, Lancefield and Geelong. Every single sporting venue we attended had adequate close parking. It had disabled access, it had bus parking, and it had a significant number of general car spaces close by, so people, spectators, athletes, grandparents could go to the venue safely. In the middle of Melbourne or rural Tasmania, obviously parking was a priority when these venues were built. It was a priority when Mingara Athletics Track was built. Why is it not now? In the past month, I've been given approval by the Victorian Athletic League to host a one-day carnival on the 31st of October this year, which is a scaled-down version of the Stall Gift. I'm incredibly excited about this opportunity. It's going to bring a significant amount of athletes that have never visited the Central Coast, coaches, supporters, officials. Part of that submission that I prepared to get that approved was based on, are the facilities adequate? I'm not sure if we lose this parking if they are adequate. How are the officials going to get to how are they going to get that equipment into the facility? Where are people going to park in the middle of a club, in the middle of a licensed venue? No other regional country facility has this problem. In the 26 years that I've been training and coaching Mingara, I've seen a significant increase in kids and teenagers training at the track. Athletics in Australia is booming with outstanding performances from juniors to the senior ranks. We should be making it easier for these kids, parents and grandparents to access this track. Let's talk about young Chloe. I've just made her up. Chloe loves Friday night little athletics. Imagine Chloe's mum rushing from childcare and school pickup in the rush hour, stuck on Wyong Road. Chloe's mum finally makes it to the track. She can't park, she doesn't have time, so she drops Chloe off. She then has to drive, find a car park a couple of 100 metres away and get back to Chloe. I reckon that process will take 10 minutes. The scenarios, Chloe's mum finds it straight away. Great story. Chloe runs after mum's car and gets lost. Chloe makes it into the track and gets scared, hides in the toilet. Chloe disappears, no one can find her. Chloe runs across the road. These are scenarios we don't have at the moment. Why are we making these scenarios? My athletes, my young female athletes, are currently safe. They walk 20 metres to their car. This proposal will make them walk through a licensed venue car park. Apologies, with drunk men walking out of that facility. That is not a safe environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Summit. Mr Duncan McCubbin.
Good afternoon. My name is Duncan McCubbin. I thank Daniel for the last presentation. It provides a segue to what I'm going to speak about. I'm unaffiliated with the club, though I'm a lapsed member of the Trotters. I spent best part of 3.5 decades teaching high school, and I apologise if I get emotional. I was fortunate enough to be a high school teacher. My areas were mathematics and special education. For over half my career, I was a head teacher, sometimes relieving deputy. The classroom was my space. So I'm going to skip a lot of what I was going to speak about as an introduction. The first thing I want to speak about is the impact of removing parking. One of the areas of research I did explained how removing parking can improve the transport situation and can improve the roads around the facility. I find that unlikely to happen around here. Removing parking will impact very negatively on community participation. And Daniel's just explained about a mum who was keen, daughter keen. I've worked with kids who are wheelies, they're wheelchairs, they're on walkers, they still want to participate. I used to supervise the arrival of kids who had to be driven to school. Prior to my teaching career, I worked for 2 years with the Department of Youth and Community Services in Sydney. Children's facilities were institutionalised. I would go out to what were known as institutions to support the children in our facilities. In communications, we called them establishments, but they were institutions. And we have come a long way, a very long way, in overcoming that. But as Daniel pointed out, there is, with random people, more cars, more unknowns, there's a safety issue. One of the great impacts on children that are struggle in terms of special education is they have delayed understanding, they have delayed knowledge. They do not always have the support of family. Some people find it hard when they've got a disabled child. That child misses out. That's where schools and other facilities come into it. So really, I'm talking about diversity and inclusion, which relates to accessibility and integration. If you take away this car park, you will dramatically reduce the community participation. The vulnerable people and children in our community, they're disproportionately affected by taking away something like the parking area. Not all of them have cars. They can't catch public transport. After hours training is almost impossible. We have come a long way, as I said, to embracing the diversity, cultural, gender, economic, and disability. But at the grassroots level, inclusivity is a two-way street. By encouraging and embracing people of diverse backgrounds, including the disabled, it's a two-way street. You are actually positively impacting on those others. Sure, we've got the Jess Hulls and we've got the Gouts and we've got all those, and that's fantastic. But the other end of the spectrum is much more limited in scope for those people. The Paralympic movement has produced a lot of success, a lot of awareness, and strong contributions from from various places, but we've still got a long way to go. It opened doors, but that doesn't mean that everybody will go through those doors. When they get through that gate, that's when everything happens. Sorry. So we need to grasp the opportunities that we have here to provide an inclusive environment, a supportive environment, and a productive environment for everybody. Not just the Jess Hulls, but the kids from different backgrounds, non-English speaking, you name it. That's what we've got to be looking at. For a long time, physical activity has been seen as a way of balancing the sedentary lifestyle that we're sort of growing into. But the bigger picture is getting the full range of people into these kind of environments. Now, I understand Mingara's motivation. A large population, a facility right on the club's doorstep. I can understand that motivation. In terms of the three tangible things we have here, we have the track, we have the car park, and we have the planned retirement village. Only two of them are set in concrete. There are plenty of opportunities to build retirement villages. Once you lose this car park, it's gone, and you don't get it back. And you just have shut the door in the face of many, particularly children, that haven't got access to the support outside the school environment. Clubs by their very nature are designed to support the community. And children with disabilities, children from non-English speaking backgrounds, the full range, they all deserve support. Take away this car park and you won't see them for dust. I'll hit on a little story to finish off. When I was first teaching, and I'd just not long finished with youth community services. I mean, they became docs, they became facts. I think in lots of ways changing their name was easier than changing their product. A boy came up to me on playground duty and trod on one of my feet on my toes. And I said to him, "What are you doing?" He trod on my other toes. And when I asked him, he said, "Go on, sir, tread on my toes." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because I haven't got any." And I should have twigged because he only had one arm. Had it been 15 years earlier, I would have assumed that he was a thalidomide baby. By the time he left in year 12, he was a star athlete. He could run really fast without toes. And they're the sorts of people that we can pick up and take along on the pathway. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCubbin. Mr. Robert Beardsley. Thank you, Mr. Beardsley.
Excuse me. No table? I'm looking for a table. Okay. Don't worry about the stopwatch. I'm a coach. Thank you for holding this public meeting. We appreciate the opportunity for an independent authority to sit here and actually listen to local concerns. The developers have pushed hard to maximize profit. the present government is willing to prioritize new senior housing numbers over local council and residents' objections. I represent the Mingara Regional Athletics Club. I am a coach and life member who has held several volunteer positions, including president. I am proud of our history and positive involvement with so many members of our community. I also joined the Mingara Recreation Club in the 1990s and supported the big move from Adelaide Street to its present location. A development of this size cannot be thought of in isolation. We will be adjacent neighbors. Right now, we feel that access to the publicly funded regional athletic center we worked so hard to develop will be cut off at the knees. The established regional athletic center has earned a bright future, but it's been a David and Goliath battle. My fight today is going to be focused on securing the safety of our most vulnerable users. Thank you for the extra time. The present implications of two leases that were not brought up in the developer's submissions are important to support our narrative. I'm quickly going to go through some history that casts light on the meat of my submission later in the presentation. In 1996, the Gosford Council chartered a feasibility study for a regional synthetic track. There are a number of reasons that was a good idea, but the summary of it was that there were 5 suitable locations, and Mingara won the ballot because of car parking and convenient access and parking facilities. Mingara published a booklet of their own afterwards, 35 pages long, that touts the benefits of that to the community and to the athletes. I'll just highlight a few things out of this. Mingara agreed for provision of additional car parking. The facility would be safe for youth and seniors, regular users with little athletics. They anticipated that 60,000 people would participate each year. And funding. They established a budget in the Gosford submission, and we were falling short, even with the Olympics coming up. A government grant was offered from a capital fund from Sport and Rec. Wyong Shire and Gosford City both agreed to put in $1.5 million, and Mingara offered the land and also $1 million. Because of Gosford was having some issues with building their own stadium, they weren't able to come up with all the money. Prices had increased. Everybody's freaked out about the introduction of GST. The Olympics in 2000 were rapidly arising, and this had to be built. We'd lose the government grant if it wasn't. Mingara were terrific. They came up with more money. Wyong Council were terrific. They picked up the slack from Gosford to a large extent, and everybody was happy families. And I can tell you that we had a wonderful relationship with the Mingara Recreation Club over the years until this latest proposal. And we're hoping that when the fight is over, that we'll be able to have a good working relationship again. There was a committee formed in the year 2000, 6 or 8 months before the facility actually opened. And the purpose of that, it's called a Central Coast Regional Athletics Facility Advisory Committee. It was, members were representing Central Coast Athletics, was Kay Levy, which you heard from earlier. Representatives were there from Gosford City Council, Wyong Shire Council, and the Mingara Recreation Club. It was noted that the advisory committee had been formed to ensure that was formed to ensure that the facility's use as a truly regional venue was maximized. This was all new to a lot of people. In that initial meeting, it was summarized that the facility is subject to a 99-year lease by the Recreation Club to Wyong Shire Council and a sublease from Wyong Shire Council to the club to comply with local government acts. I have copies of the leases. I'm not going to read it out. 19 pages. Now, all of this I'll be submitting in my written submission, but I want to reference that. This is a copy of the lease we've obtained, and I did read all 19 pages, between the leaseor, which was the Mingara Recreation Club, to Wyong Shire Council for 99 years. And to highlight the spirit of cooperation, the 99-year lease was for $1. The Wyong Shire Council did a sublease back to the Mingara Recreation Club as their preferred management option. However, on Section 6.2 and Section 6.3, there are some clauses in that sublease. One is that they comply with all laws and requirements of any relevant authority regulating the use of the premises, including obtaining and, where relevant, maintaining any required consents. Also in 6.3, the leasee, that's Mingara, must not do anything in relation to the premises which, in the reasonable opinion of the leaseor council, is annoying, offensive, or dangerous to other occupiers of the building, the land, or to the owners or occupiers of the land in the vicinity of the premises, which is our parking. I have three notes from council. Reference 7, which I noted in my outline, was submitted on the 5th of February 2026. And it says, as subleaseor to the Mingara Recreation Club of the Regional Athletics Track located on Lot 71, council requests that the following consent condition that was imposed in respect of the development of the Regional Athletics Track continue to be adhered to. All right, and that is condition 8. Now, early on, John Osborne, who was the CEO of Mingara, wrote to the council and said, hey, we don't need a sealed parking lot. We're still planting grass. They only just moved in 1996, 97, 98, and in 1999, when conditions of consent were imposed on the facility, which had not yet been built, John wisely said, we don't need to put all this capital into a sealed parking lot when we have enough up at the top. That wasn't me, was it? All right. Our council still has concerns about the loss of parking, and it should be accommodated within a convenient location near the track, which provides safe access for families. All of this will be detailed more completely. I'm just really hurrying here. The recommendation to council initially was that an existing car park is considered to be required for the Mingara Club, and also the demands for the athletics facility will need to be provided separately. The location of the athletics facility is isolated from the existing car parking, and it is considered appropriate to provide at least some of the parking near to the facility. The traffic committee actually recommended that consideration be given to the provision of all-weather parking for up to 150 spaces adjacent to the athletics facility. Now, That's not 1 minute. May I have 2 extra minutes, please? All right, thank you. I'll skip who attends the athletic center. Little athletics. Little athletics are important users of the athletic center. Our membership is nearly 500, and along with siblings and parents who may attend from October to March, it would be a nightmare moving these people through the alternative parking proposed. It is not safe enough for children. I have an article from the World Health Organization which highlights the reason for high traffic injuries among children. It concludes that general roads are planned without sufficient consideration for the specific needs of children, that they are impulsive, short attention span, they struggle to cope more than one challenge at a time, and they are especially prone to risks. They're not the only ones we have to be concerned about. Protection of female athletes, and then I'll conclude. Thank you. About half of the athletes that train regularly at the athletic center are women. In the past year, ending in March 2026, 12,925 sexual assault incidents were reported to police. Young women are heavily impacted. The New South Wales Bureau of Crime and Statistics states that there is underreporting through fear and shame. We have 4 recorded incidents involving, young female athletes that are registered with our club, and we have a duty to minimize the risk young women have that train and leave in the dark halfway for half the days in the year. I would like to point out that these do not happen on Mingara facilities, but the potential is there. I'm finishing. Last paragraph.
Paragraph.
Okay, thank you. Concluding remarks, thank you for your patience. A development of this size cannot be thought of in isolation. We are the neighbors. There is a duty of care to protect vulnerable users of the athletic club, of the athletic center. We agree with Central Coast Council that the proposed parking areas are not considered to be safely and conveniently located for athletics track parking. That's reference 11. The terms of the 99-year lease and sublease between Gosford City Council and the Mingara Recreation Club strongly suggest that the terms of Condition 8 are still enforceable. I'll leave that up to the lawyers.
That's great.
I'm just going to ask for a condition of consent. May I do that?
We'll have that in your submission, I think.
Okay, thank
in
you.
your written submission.
Yes, that's
Yep.
fair enough. That's
And
fair
you
enough.
want to draw our attention to the conditions
I timed
of
it, but
consent.
there's something wrong with my stopwatch.
Thank you. Mrs. Jacqueline O'Neill. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Jacqueline O'Neill and I've been a member of the Mingara Regional Athletics Club since 2014. I'm now in my 30s and still train with my coach, Larry Spencer, at the Mingara Athletics track at least 3 days a week and often compete with the club most weekends over summer. I'd like to take this opportunity to highlight the impacts of this important facility on my own personal journey before outlining some concerns with the current development. Thank you. I grew up on the Central Coast and, like many young people, particularly women, stepped away from organised sport after finishing school. I was very busy. A few years later, I realised I needed sport back in my life, not just for my physical health, but for my mental well-being, my relationships, and for the way I show up in my professional life too. I joined Rob and Margaret on one of their weeknight distance running squads, which often welcomes over 50 athletes on any given night of the week. Found out very quickly that I was much more inclined to speed. Met my coach Larry shortly after, and the rest was history. The track at Mingara quickly became my second home, and many of the people sitting in this room became training partners, mentors, and lifelong friends. Now, some of them are even family. We celebrate success together, support each other through challenges, travel together to meets over summer, and create the kinds of connections that are of great benefit to our collective communities. Over time, my love for athletics grew into a broader passion for sport. Today, I work professionally in sports communications, representing Australian sport, both nationally and internationally. Only last month, I travelled to Italy, as part of an Australian sporting delegation, easily the highlight of my career so far. Well, that career has taken me around the world and hopefully will continue to do so. It began right here at the track, one that I will always be grateful to be able to come home to, as long as I can get a parking space. This facility has helped launch the journeys of not only countless athletes, but also coaches, officials, volunteers, and professionals in sport. It is not only a sporting facility, but a community asset that creates social, health, and economic value for our beautiful region. This should not be overlooked. While we are grateful to Mingara Recreation Club for their support of our sport and the facility over the years, we are concerned about the proposed development in its current format, particularly the loss of parking and accessibility that will result. Unlike Sydney, the Central Coast only has one synthetic athletics facility. Mingara is the region's premier and only athletics venue. If access to this facility becomes more difficult, there is no alternative venue capable of absorbing that demand. The parking proposed to replace existing spaces is located in various places behind the club, and as many have flagged, requires users to access the track via a pathway that is not easily visible from the athletics facility, the club itself, or the main road. As someone who continues to train year-round, including during evenings in winter, I do have genuine concerns about the safety of this arrangement, not only for myself, but for others. Training frequently finishes after dark, and as far as I'm aware, the proposed access route has limited passive surveillance. I'm also of the understanding that no additional security measures have been proposed as part of the development along these pathways. As many have mentioned, athletics participants include many vulnerable groups: children, teenagers, women, older adults, disabled individuals, volunteers, and officials. Any access arrangements should prioritise visibility, safety, and ease of movement, particularly during those evening training periods. I'm also concerned, as someone else has mentioned, that the cumulative parking demand generated by the proposed approved childcare centre has not been adequately considered alongside the sporting use. Peak childcare pick-up times between approximately 3:30 p.m. and 6 p.m. will directly overlap with peak athletics training times. These are the exact hours when athletes, parents, coaches and officials are arriving at the venue for training through the week. On a typical training night, even during winter, as we've heard, it's common to see over 200 vehicles associated with athletics activity alone, spread across multiple training squads and user groups. And thankfully, demand for the track is growing, not declining. The rise of running groups, hybrid fitness events and recreational athletics beyond the core of our sport has seen increasing numbers of people using the facilities, particularly over the last 12 months since this application was lodged. For many runners, this is the only place on the Central Coast where training sessions can be measured accurately and performed safely. In my experience, the facility is far busier today than at any point since I joined the club over a decade ago. I'd also like to take this opportunity to mention the Berkeley Vale Football Club, whose senior teams currently train at the track 2 nights a week. It is my understanding they are sponsored by Mingara Recreation Club, and I'd like to note that any mention of their usage of the facility was notably omitted from the original application. Furthermore, existing parking demand already places pressure on the precinct. The main Mingara car park, as we've heard, regularly reaches capacity during major events, busy weekends and club promotions, particularly on badge draw night. Many regular users know this firsthand because we've often had to relocate vehicles between the track and the main club car park to access other facilities such as the gym, which many of us are no longer a member of, partially for this reason. There is also limited capacity for overflow parking in surrounding streets. Nearby roads such as Hanson's and the Central Coast Highway Corridor do not provide a practical or safe solution for large event attendance. I'd like to note the majority of surrounding streets are not actually wide enough for curbside parking either. Athletics carnivals bring athletes, officials, volunteers, families and visitors to the Central Coast. These events support local businesses, accommodation providers and hospitality venues, including those owned by Mingara. Maintaining the full functionality of this facility is therefore not only a sporting issue, but an economic one. I respectfully ask the Commissioners to carefully consider whether the proposed parking arrangements adequately support both the current, but most importantly, the future operation of this important regional sporting asset. This track has given me and many others opportunities, friendships and careers that I never imagined possible. I know I'm not alone in that experience. My hope is that future generations of Central Coast athletes are afforded those same opportunities, supported by a facility that remains accessible, safe and fit for purpose. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms O'Neill. Thank you. Mr Matthew Horsnell.
Hey guys, no prepared speech or anything, but I've been involved with coaching for 35 years and been involved with Mingara since 2000, the Olympics, and at that point the feel was let's start the facility and build it up, and it was the idea that we can produce athletes for the next phase, which is coming up in 2032 in Brisbane. So what we've produced since then are world champions. Nicola Oslager trains with us, that we've developed her over this period. She came in as a little kid, worked through. She's a world champion, been a two-time gold medalist at the last 2 Olympic Games. And her plan is to keep going. She's 30 now. She's come from a little kid through Mingara, and it's been a fabulous journey. And through that time, we look to train, and at certain times of the day at Mingara, and schools is not appreciated. That schools, the volume and the amount of time trying to get spare time on the track to train. Schools are there every day of the week during the week, and it's just flat out. Bus parking already is chaos there at the moment. I think for me, for my job, that I've been all around the world with Nicola to be seeing different facilities and different places that we train at, and we come back to the Central Coast. Mingara is just a gem to be here, the facilities, the people. We have a special environment on the coast that just creates that well-being and just the mindset that we have out of the kids. They just love it. They love training there, and they love the people. And I can see the village, the people there, the old, Masters Athletics is booming in Australia, and those guys in the village can come across, their families can park in the parking area where we are now, come across, and they can compete and be part of the community. Because one of my other jobs that I am outside of coach is I'm a designer, an engineering designer. That at the moment I'm working on North Park's gold mine, and what we look at when we design things, I look at the stakeholders. I lay out the plans to working with existing infrastructure. And we look at where's the maintenance coming, where's the roads going, where do we put everything to actually tick the box to keep everybody happy. We try and keep everyone in the loop, and it's a balanced viewpoint, not just one-sided. So from what I look as a designer, professional, the current layout is just skewed one way. And it's looking at the design, we could simply slide the facility up further, take some car parks from the top car park, have still a good manageable group of car parks outside of the track, and also people who visit, they have in the old age facility, they'll have visitors, like we know because I've been there with my parents and that, we go and visit them. And they come in, and if they can park on either side as a balanced viewpoint, It's better for families, better for everyone, better for the track. You know, it's, for me, it looks so simple to have that work properly, that everyone can be having a tick beside it, not have it all one way and it just goes the wrong way and everyone struggles. I mean, I'm getting old too. I might even end up in that place. You never know. But we tend to carry, like me as a coach, I carry a lot of gear. I've got about 3 bags that we drag into the track. If I've got to, I'm coming up to 70 now, I'm not far off, and if I've got to lug all that gear and stuff around, I'm going to struggle actually. Just I'll end up not bringing it, and then athletes will suffer because they don't have the equipment that need to train properly to be furthering Olympic aspirations, because we already do that. We have athletes at the highest level around the world, and we've proved we can do it. So that's pretty well my summation of where we're at, and I think it's a simple job to have everything work for everyone, and just get the stakeholders together and work out the compromises, and it can be done quite easily.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hosnell. We've now got Chelsea Manka, and she's on the telephone. Have we got Chelsea?
Yep, I'm here.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
You're live to the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Firstly, I just want to say that I support the submissions made by Kay and along with Robert and Margaret Beardsley. Just to add that my own comments and those views shared by fellow committee members at Warnervale Athletics Centre. I wanted to add that at the annual zone athletics events that we have there each year, in the current area where they're proposed to do the development, obviously that car park's always overflowing already into the Mingara car park. So to lose that area would create a massive amount of stress to try and find a park when, you know, children are meant to be calling for marshalling and parents can't find a parking spot for them. That's, or, you know, the kids are already stressed as it is, so that would add to that. It'd also be quite difficult if we had to park further away to carry all the required supplies for that weekend, like such as gazebos for some shade for the kids, extra clothing for them to keep warm or cool, or just change throughout the day, food for the day, and eskies loaded with cool drinks for them. Also, obviously, after having all that gear, we've still got kids that we've got to try and get there safely without them having to walk where there's plenty of other traffic coming and going. So parking definitely is an important part of these events. If things were to progress with the aged care housing, the development would need to include adequate parking for these types of events within the plans. And it's not only zone athletics, of course, that happens there. We all know that all heaps of schools around the area, both public and private, use the facilities as well. And that car park I know is always full. Also, there's obviously nowhere else on the coast that has these sort of facilities for athletics. Kids always feel super excited when they get to use these synthetic tracks, especially Warnervale Oval is quite a soggy one. So to be able to go to these events sometimes that are held there, they just love it there. So, but once the parking becomes difficult, then the parents are probably less likely to try and go to these events there. It's also the only facility around that the lines are marked all year round for these athletes to practice on. So to lose the parking and make things difficult would be a real loss for athletics on the coast as a whole. I just think they need to consider a fair and reasonable option for all community members to enjoy these spaces. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Mrs. Margaret Beardsley.
Thanks for the opportunity to be here, and everybody that's contributing so far. It's very passionate and close to a lot of our hearts. I've received an Order of Australia Medal for services to athletics. I'm a life member of New South Wales Athletics and our local Mingara Athletics Club. I've been secretary there for 29 years, and I'm a registered athletics coach, actively coaching for 31 years. I chaired the original committee that sought to establish the athletics track. I personally believe it's not in the best interest of the community to remove the adjacent parking in this development proposal. It jeopardises safety and participation, and I believe will likely result in economic loss from the diminishing attraction of the facility. Limited parking will create barriers that deter athletes and events from returning to the venue. It's an existing community facility that Mingara has committed to, and it really needs to be protected by having adjacent parking available. We recently collected over 1,500 signatures in just 3 weeks with a petition, Save the Track Parking, on change.org, showing that parking is a high concern for the community and needs to be addressed. I personally estimated at least 80,000 people used this facility last year. The track was approved as a regional facility, and the region of Central Coast is 60 kilometres from north to south. It's a complicated area for public transport. So people travel by car to use this facility. Convenient and safe parking must be offered to accommodate the users. Parking is the lifeblood to the access of the track. We've had inspirational results from the participation, which include over 10 Paralympic and Commonwealth Games representatives earning podium medals. More than 2,000 Australian national medals have been earned across all ages. I've attended many carnivals and I've always experienced a positive atmosphere. Families attend, siblings, young, old, parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents. And I've coached many of these athletes and watched them grow in their personal well-being. Access to the track needs to be protected to provide this great hub of well-being. I question the statement from the State Significant Development findings that the project is acceptable, but it won't impact the precinct to efficiently function, and parking demand can be met with event traffic management plans. The event management plan for most community events will add unaffordable cost to volunteer organisations and schools. Provision of volunteers to assist in that is almost impossible. Proposing to use the 700 spaces of shared integrated parking, losing 300 spaces from the adjacent area to the athletics track, will increase conflict and frustration between patrons of the club and track users. Parking and drop-off adjacent to the track has been crucial to facilitate hundreds of cars that arrive in peak times. The carnival starts at 9. All the kids have got to be there at the same time. Multiple buses deliver whole schools. Existing traffic flow is already challenged with pedestrian activity. I've seen and experienced the traffic congestion and frustration at peak times, with drivers circling all existing areas looking for empty spaces. The precinct will be unable to function efficiently. The Central Coast is the 9th largest urban region in Australia. It needs accessible facilities. Mingara Recreation Club has thousands of members and it will continue to grow. The Central Coast population is growing and it's expected to be 400,000 by the year 2041. We need a plan and to protect for the future. The use of the track and other facilities provided by Mingara Club has also been mirrored in these growing numbers. But sadly, the parking is not keeping pace. Mingara Recreation is a community club owned by the community. I'm a member. Its mission statement is to make a significant contribution to the quality of community life. This project does not align with that statement. With the magnitude and the future implications of this project, I feel members have not been consulted adequately. As a member, I wasn't consulted, except for owning property on the other side of Wyong Road. I wouldn't have known about the project deadlines. I urge you as the Independent Planning Commission to protect this essential infrastructure to ensure that the athletic track remains viable and accessible for current and future generations. Over the next 25 years, this will amount to 2 million people, and the gain from the planned development offers to benefit 300 to 400. Once the land is developed, the parking will be gone forever.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Beardsley. We're now to hear from Mr. Rod Alexander, and he's on the telephone. Have we got him online?
Yes, hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can, Mr. Alexander. Please go ahead.
Thank you. So, look, my apologies, I haven't heard any of the previous comments that have been mentioned on the call up to now. So I hope that my questions and my queries and my objections haven't been said. Well, actually, I hope they have been said multiple times, so we get more weight against it. So, look, I previously put in my objections on the 10th of January 25, and I didn't really receive any responses back. But mine are really, as a resident in the local area, it's the effects that the new proposal will have on myself and the other residents. Now, one thing that has already occurred because of this new proposal is, for as long as I can remember, we were having a Christmas in the Stars concert each year, and last year it was moved to Gosford. Now, I know there could be other reasons that have been documented as what it was for, but anyone with a bit of common sense would realise, because this new development is taking up the previously used grassed area for the car parking, to me, that's the reason why that's been moved on, which is very disappointing. It's one of the reasons, the pluses for the area. And now the one that was held at Gosford was nowhere near any level of quality as what the previous ones at Mingara were. Now, I'll start with my objections. It's mainly around the planning information and the traffic reports. Now, we all know that we can make a table look as fancy or as accurate as you want to show the required results, but it's the traffic. So why I live not far from Mingara, and we have issues getting through the Mingara Drive intersection out to the lights now. I don't believe that the reports that have come back, the amended reports that have come back, have done a true analysis of the traffic that comes through there currently now during peak times and off-peak times. I personally think that if this new development was to go ahead, that all traffic for it should go in and out through the existing road coming off Wyong Road. And that's when the thing's built, but it's also in the construction. There's no way that you could funnel that traffic through and past the Mingara Club, but through that roundabout, because the residents now can't get through there in an afternoon or in a morning now. So I think bollards should be put between the car park in Mingara, the existing car park, so all traffic would be isolated and only to go down Wyong Road and through the offshoot there along the athletics field. So the report, the traffic's report, I believe it's incorrect. It mentions something like the Mingara Road and Hanson Road roundabout is a three-legged roundabout. Well, that's not true. If it was a three-legged roundabout, well, that would mean that the people coming out of the medical centre there would have right of way, or would not have right of way. Now, you could turn up to that intersection and they have right of way as much as anyone. So it's a four-legged roundabout. It's not what's commonly known as a three-legged roundabout. The other objection is the impacts to the ducks that cross the road in that area between the Mingara roundabout and the Hanson's Road. That hasn't been considered anywhere in any of the environmental impact statements. There used to be a duck crossing sign just there near the roundabout, but I don't know if it's still there. There will be significant traffic delays with this development if they intend to use the Mingara roundabout as a thoroughfare in and out for traffic. All traffic should be kept on the main Wyong Road, and then it would only impact the people going in and out that road, not the local residents around the Mingara area. It's a concern to the. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Our next speaker is Mr. Greg Stevenson. Mr. Stevenson. Thank you.
G'day. My name's Gregory Stevenson. I'm a concerned resident, and I think you, as the Independent Planning Commission, should reject this outright. Outright. We do not want it. It is not wanted. First thing I'd like to point out, Mingara Recreational Club. Why has recreational got to do with growing old people? Let's be brutally honest. We have a world-class athletics track with, I wouldn't say it was a cow pasture, but that's basically what it is. Now, I'm a retired senior firefighter and rescue officer. I can assure you, us first responders do not like responding to children's accidents. I have a couple in my back of my brain, and they are following me for the rest of my life. If we move the traffic, the car park from where it is up in amongst the cars, that is a recipe for disaster. And now, I don't want to see another person see this disaster, forgetting about the poor parents who are going to lose a child. Now, I'm also a father, a grandfather. Are you a mother and a grandmother? Yes? Then you understand what I'm talking about. We do not have enough sporting facilities. We have kids at the moment that are running amok because there's not enough facilities for them. Now, my granddaughter and my grandson, they both play OzTag and soccer, and they are at the athletics track. What we should be doing with that land, recreational club, that land should be built as football fields, soccer fields, tennis courts, pickleball courts. Now, that's one of the big sports right now is pickleball. Why is that not being looked into for this land? Recreational club. I'll say that again. Now, I want to know, is anyone here from the board, the board members of Mingara? Where are they? If they're so proud of this development, you'd think they'd be here. You'd think they'd have in the foyer of the club, they'd have massive big signs saying, look what we're going to do. Why are they so afraid to tell the members that they want to destroy our land and sell it to some city developer that's going to make money? And it's gone forever. That's what I don't understand. Why? I urge you from the Independent Planning Commission, reject it out of hand. Let us have facilities for our children and for our grandchildren. Now, I'm also a thrower. I'm one of the silly major master throwers. I throw really good 4-kilo shot puts. I also throw 1-kilo discuses. Now, when I train, I need to have a couple of these 4 kilos. I need 4 or 5 discuses because when you throw one, you don't want to go out and get it. You want to throw a bunch. So we're talking 10, 15, 20 kilos of implements. And you want me to take it how far? I urge you, ladies, while you're here today, and I notice there's a lot of people here who are not locals, go via down and have a look at the club. Now, why is this meeting, this public meeting, not in the club? Why are the board so afraid to let the members not know what's going on? So I am, as you can appreciate, quite emotional about this, and I urge you to reject it out of hand. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Mr. Christian Redford from New South Wales Athletics.
I'm a bit worried about going after Greg now with that level of passion. Well done, mate. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Christian Renford and I'm the Chief Executive of New South Wales Athletics. We are the peak body for athletics across the state. And I'm speaking today on behalf of New South Wales Athletics, which is formerly Little Athletics New South Wales and Athletics New South Wales, who have each lodged submissions raising concerns about this proposal. I wanted to use my 5 minutes today to talk on three things. One, the scale of what happens at this venue. Two, why it matters more than ever for the whole state network facility of athletics tracks around the state, and why the parking solution in front of you doesn't reflect how athletics as a sport actually operates. So first, Mingara Regional Athletics Club has over 600 members and is one of our largest and fastest growing centres in our 220 club, 50,000 member network. It's hosted New South Wales Country Championships, it's hosted Zone Championships, Regional Championships, Treloar Shields, Winter Track Final, regularly drawing up to 1,000 athletes and over 300 attendees over the course of a single weekend. It's regularly booked solid for school carnivals across 2 terms and recently hosted the Sydney North School Sport Association Championships, the largest school sport event in the state, attracting over 3,000 students and spectators. Not only is this a great local facility, but it's also a suitable alternative to city venues, which are also under significant pressure to provide this level of facility and this level of amenity. The result of that being that there's a huge financial benefit to the entire Central Coast, particularly the Mingara precinct. Secondly, and why this matters right now, New South Wales Athletics has just finalised our statewide facility strategy. It's going to be released later this month and it will confirm that Mingara is only one of 4 regional athletics hubs, certified synthetic tracks in the entire Central Coast and Hunter region, and one of just 20 such clubs and hubs statewide. That same strategy shows that Central Coast and the Hunter region has around 170,000 enrolled primary and secondary students, the largest student population of any non-metropolitan region in New South Wales, ahead of New South Wales South and Sydney North West and every other regional area in the state. It's important to understand that the Mingara track, like most athletics tracks, not only provides a valuable community and regional sporting resource to the athletics community, but it also provides a central and a pivotal role in athletics carnivals, being one of only 2 sports articulated in our New South Wales education curriculum. Our strategy's highlighted, bless you, that the Central Coast carries the highest demand score of any local government area in the region. In short, a development that erodes the operating capacity of this venue now directly works against this plan and the future usability of the venue. Thirdly, and this is probably the point that I want the Commission to take away and consider, is that athletics doesn't generate a parking demand on the way that a football or a rugby field does. A single team sporting infrastructure might bring 30 or 50 people for about an hour. A single little athletics event on a Friday evening or a Saturday morning might bring 250, 350 more children for 2 to 3, 4 hours, each with an average of 1.5 parents in attendance for the duration, because young people cannot be dropped off and left. That's not 30 cars an hour, that's potentially 600 people and several hundred vehicles parked for the better part of a morning and an afternoon, multiple times a week, across 2 school terms, plus carnivals, plus championship periods on top of that. Any parking model built on a standard sporting field ratios will significantly underestimate that demand by a large magnitude. And it's this mismatch that's what's precisely at stake here. Around 300 established grass park overflow spaces directly adjacent to a track are proposed for permanent removal, with the replacement parking thinned to a fraction of that, relocated some 400 metres away. New South Wales Athletics has separately raised that Friday night competitions already require children to cross dark service roads into car parks shared with licensed and gaming premises. A child safety issue that gets worse, not better, if athletics families are pushed further away from the track. Our ask is simple. Before any consent is granted, the Commission should require that a parking and pedestrian access to the regional athletics track be assessed against athletics' actual usage patterns. peak crowds, dwell times, family attendance ratios, and not some generic sporting field benchmarking that any replacement parking match today's capacity and proximity and safety, not just its simple square meterage. Athletics at Mingara serves thousands of children, hundreds of families and a state network that is actively investing in this venue's future. I ask that the Commission ensure that this development does not undermine that and does not introduce any unintended consequences that fundamentally change the usage and the utilisation profile of this very valued venue for the hundreds of athletes and thousands of students that rely on this venue every week. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Renford. That's the last of our public presentations and submissions. I'd like to now call on the applicant to address those issues that have been raised today insofar as you can. Particularly, you might be able to talk to us about parking safety, passive surveillance, lighting and accessibility. Mr. Fulcher raised planning regime in relation to building heights as well too. There's also the question that Mr. Moon and Mr. Alexander raised about traffic during operations and during construction. I'm not sure if you can address Mr. Alexander's duck crossing issue, but if you could, that would be great. And also too, the costs of these event management plans, specifically to those community groups at the events, is something you may be able to address this afternoon. This was a point that Margaret Beardsley raised. And any other comments that you might like to make as well. If you could just introduce yourself to the community, thank you.
Thanks, Commissioners. My name's Naomi Daly. I'm one of the planners that have worked on this proposal, including drafting of the EIS document, which you have, I'm sure, seen and read before you. I'm here with quite a few technical consultants as well as club representatives. There is obviously a lot of information that goes into these submissions, so we want to ensure that anything we do say is technically correct. So I might divert after I have said some comments, if that's okay with you, to others who might be able to more suitably respond, such as Ben, our traffic engineer. We have Andy from the club. If there was flooding, but it seems like that's okay. We do have also Ben and landscape from Aaron as well, and Parata, Andrew and Michael in terms of construction matters. I guess largely, look, at the outset, there is a lot of issues here, and I probably agree with your summation of those which were raised. Clearly, parking is the primary one. We were very cognizant of that issue when we first came to look at this development, as us as being independent coming in. Look, we did a thorough, I guess, GIPA search, which means obtaining all of the past development consents that apply to that athletics track to ensure that we had all of the most up-to-date information we could. Look, I know there's been a lot of historical commentary. I wasn't party to it, and I think it's even pre-Andy. But all we can go on is those documents that we see before us, which are the historical consents. There was also correspondence from council as well. We put forward our position to the Department of Planning, and they have assessed all of that information as being appropriate. One of the clear points which all of that information in terms of the past development consent revealed was that the consent condition number 8, which is referenced quite a few by many here, does talk about, it has a consent condition which requires 150 all-weather and 150 grassed spaces that are near to the development. There is also a stamped plan which went with that consent, which nominated not only the car park where your athletics users currently park, but it did actually nominate various grassed areas. We, as planners, wanted to ensure that we didn't need to amend that past development consent. and the department, as well as our analysis, and also got some independent legal advice for the abundance of caution, proved that we did not need to amend that consent. By what we are doing, we are not in breach of that historical development consent. I think the past approval is one thing. I think some of the historical stuff, there is no stage 2 that's ever, been occurring. We can, within our precinct, provide for that 300 car parks, which are the 150 of all weather plus grass. And then we're also providing in our event traffic management over and above that 300, 169 potential other grassed overflow spaces which are in the nominated areas under the historical consent. I will, though, divert, if there's any other parking matters, to Ben, and also traffic particularly, to Ben to talk through that a little bit further. I think in terms of, parking management, I think it's important to understand that, look, the athletics track is owned and it's also managed by Mingara. The use of the track is subject to a booking system. It is managed by one entity. And I think that is really helpful because it does manage peaks. The club has transparency a year out when a school might want to book that venue. It also knows, well, if there's going to be a peak day from athletics users, it won't be a day, or there'll be definitely more pointed to ensure that there won't be another, members, draw or something. So those peaks in demand are flattened. And that is part of, I guess, their ongoing commitment to that site, that they intend to ensure that basically any users can book the use of the track, not only athletics users and many of the groups that are here today, but also soccer clubs, but also schools. Like if you were there today, there was actually a school using the track currently. Look, when they make that booking, they do obtain some information from those people, such as participation numbers. It's important to understand that historical consent did have a maximum capacity of 1,000. So the club has to have some ongoing, they can't go beyond that consent, back to my not breaching that past consent. So 1,000 is the number of participants which are permitted lawfully on the use of the track. Sounds like there's a great, momentum of great numbers that might be increasing with the regional facility. Unfortunately, they are bound by that though. Other matters, and I do recognise there was a lot of discussion. I guess I might just jump to planning just quickly, then I'll go back to safety and accessibility. In terms of planning, which Glengara did raise about sort of density and height across the site. Look, the current site doesn't have a height control or a floor space control. And under the state planning policy that we have reference to for this type of development, it has some guidance, but they're not what are called a must. They're non-discretionary development standards. Sounds very, planning-esque, but importantly, look, we developed the form of the development more in a contextual response, which we have the ability to do so. So it assesses that development on merit rather than through numerical controls, because there are none that apply to that site. So I guess providing a lower scale of development, 2 stories, much comparable to the 1-2-story in Glengara, close to the Glengara boundaries, and then scaling up to a higher forms, more centralised in the site, taking also cues from the hotel building there as well. We do have our architect here if there was, panel, any questions on that one as well. Definitely, look, completely acknowledge safety. Definitely that came out in your submissions throughout both the ongoing submissions, but in that open for public exhibition phase. Look, I'm a female, I get that, I'm a mother, get that. I do want to acknowledge that the current arrangement is unlit itself now, and it is, unregulated. Look, what we're trying to do, regardless of location, if you had a child that needed to be safely walked to the car, you would do that in the current scenario. We anticipate that you would then similarly do that in the future scenario. And the location of the car parking across the site, We are improving the pedestrian networks and connections from the gate of the athletics to the club car park and across in front of the Legends car park, which is the car park in front of the club there, ensuring that they are accessible, they're paved, they're lit, and also in terms of, pedestrian crossings, there'll be about sort of additional pedestrian crossings that are also proposed along Mingara Drive there. I would argue that potentially the seniors might provide you some improved passive surveillance to some of those walkways back from athletics entrance point to the club car park. And similarly through to the northern side of the club, there would be some potential passive surveillance from the ELC, so the childcare, but also from the club lounge that fronts out onto there as well. We also undertook, as part of the SSD application, a SEPTED analysis, which is a crime prevention through environmental design report. That report not only looked at our development, but would look more broadly about safety of the development. And I think in terms of some of those recommendations, it was definitely lighting. Lighting was sort of one thing that we, ensured that would that we had undertaken. Otherwise, so accessibility, yes, recognise. Look, currently I'd have to say on the current arrangement on site, there is some accessible parking on the road there, but they're not to code. They're not compliant accessible spaces now. What this proposal is doing is providing 5 immediately adjacent accessible parking spaces, which are to code, which meet the right requirements. As well as that, I think 2 parent parking drop-off points there, which could be used to drop off some of this heavy equipment, or otherwise then argue the same sort of similar walking distance would be afforded, sort of 2 to 5 minutes at maximum from front door to car park, either the north or the south, than really if you were parking way down the end of the open grassed area currently. In terms of, so accessible, so the pathways would be accessible from the doorway. Bus drop-off was another improvement that's being considered, which addresses some of those safety matters as well. We are providing 3 bus bays out the front there now. Bus bays provided, and widening that footpath. Currently, if you look at where school groups might use those bus drop-offs there, it is quite constricted, but we'll have 3 bus bays there provided. And look, the school groups manage those to ensure the safety of those children do not run out on the road, and they're all sort of congregated and managed in the site, then walked out to those buses adjoining. The other thing is there's also, just in terms of other conflicts and other movements that might happen there, there's also a dedicated service bay, so any deliveries are also provided close by, and there's also an ambulance bay there as well. Now, what else? I'm just trying to read through my notes. I apologise. I was taking notes as we were going along. Well, look, what I might do, pause on that for now, and possibly throw to Ben to actually talk through some parking and traffic matters in a little bit more detail than myself.
Right.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ben. If you could introduce yourself at the start. I'm conscious of time, but everyone's made a big commitment to be here today. So if you could just give us a response to those points that were raised in a timely fashion, that would be great.
Okay. My name's Ben Liddell. I'm the traffic engineer for the applicant. I'll touch on the traffic impacts comments first, just to have them all grouped together. So we have undertaken a comprehensive assessment of the traffic impacts of the independent living units and the residential aged care developments. We have focused our analysis on the AM and PM weekday peak periods when Wyong Road and the surrounding road network accommodates the most traffic. So it's the worst case scenario. So it generally aligns with the commuter peaks. So people going to work, coming home, those are the AM and PM peak periods on a weekday. We confirmed this methodology with Transport for New South Wales prior to completing our assessment, and this approach is consistent with other ILU developments we have done within New South Wales. We have also assessed the Saturday network peak period, and that was in response to Transport for New South Wales early feedback. Now, there are a few points I'd like to emphasise with respect to our traffic assessment. Our analysis assessed the impacts at 7 key intersections near the site, including the access road to Wyong Road. ILU and residential aged care developments are considered low traffic generating land uses, as Mr. Moon's traffic surveys may have shown. Our assessment considered the cumulative impacts associated with the club, the hotel, and the ELC developments, which generate traffic during those weekday peak periods. Traffic impacts across the site are distributed across the network via 2 access driveways. So the traffic generated by the proposal is not concentrated on a single access point. Our assessment demonstrated that all intersections will maintain their current levels of service, and this was expected given the amount of traffic generated by the proposal. Transport for New South Wales, Council, and the Department of Planning raised no concerns with our traffic assessment, study locations, survey times, modelling assumptions, or land use trip rates. Large carnival events, I understand they only occur 5 to 6 days out of the year. We would consider... So they're carnival events I'm talking about. I'm not talking about general athletics events, carnival events, up to 6 days per year. So they're the larger ones that draw large crowds. So these are considered outlier events that would be subject to event-specific traffic management measures. And as Naomi mentioned, the club can manage the uses on the site to ensure that there isn't overlapping major events. I note, I think it was Mr. Moon mentioned that there was some existing constraints within the adjacent road network, and that's mainly at the 2 signalised intersections of Mingara Drive and Wyong Road and Tumby Road. So we would consider these strategic planning issues that would need to be addressed by Transport for New South Wales and Council and are well beyond the scope of a single applicant. That's in terms of parking impacts. With respect to the precinct-wide parking impacts, which is the topic of the discussion today, we've taken a cumulative parking assessment of the club, the hotel, the ELC and the athletics demands. And the assessment identified the 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. on a Friday night as the peak parking demand for all users. So that was made up of a number of figures as outlined in our traffic report, and that's 359 spaces with the club, 92 spaces with the approved hotel and now constructed hotel, and 27 spaces associated with the ELC staff. It also included 300 spaces associated with the athletics track, and that's consistent with the existing approval and patron capacity. So just a couple of items to note on our cumulative assessment. So the 92 hotel spaces includes 86 spaces for rooms and 6 staff. It assumes 100% room occupancy, 100% car usage, and it assumes that all hotel guests will be on site between 6 and 7 p.m, and this is unlikely to be the case. The 27 ELC spaces in our assessment assumes that all 27 staff will be on site after 6 p.m, which is unlikely given the case that ELCs typically close at 6 p.m, and there won't be 27 staff still on site after that period.
To respond,
Yeah.
Ben?
Yep.
Great. I might just, Naomi, I might just say that you can make a submission to us at any time until midnight next Sunday about anything that you've heard today or want feedback. We'll read all those submissions. Anything that you've given us today, and a number of people have provided additional information, we'll be reading and will be up on our website. So you do have a chance to make a further submission about these matters. Naomi, is there something you wanted to finish up on?
Look, it was just a concluding comment, and just important to note. Look, safety and convenience of parking is the primary issues here. I did want to just recognise that there are a couple of consent conditions, which consent condition number 7, which also does call out that is undertaken, that a precinct connectivity and management plan is actually undertaken by an expert in consultation with the user groups of the athletics track. So just wanted to acknowledge that opportunity will be there for people to to tell us how, maybe how to improve things on what's before you. So whilst we have submitted an event traffic management plan as well, that condition of consent under C8 also says that is to be finalised and consider a number of other matters, such as traffic and parking measures for typical events in Mingara precinct, measures to facilitate safe, accessible and convenient movement of pedestrians through the precinct, measures for assessing the requirements for site conditions and the suitability of the overflow car parking, and measures to encourage and promote sustainable use of travel. So did want to note that, yes, we have submitted an event traffic management plan, but that condition of consent does actually say that it is to be sort of finalised and finessed, and similarly that consultation with user groups for connectivity and pedestrian management plan will also be afforded to many of the users in the room here. Right. And I don't know if you want to talk about construction, but there's also conditions of consent which would, a construction management plan and traffic management plan would be prepared, which we are, unless you want to talk to any specifics, we do have people here to talk of those.
I think that it might be useful to make the comment that the draft conditions of consent are up on the website. If you've got any thoughts, suggestions, proposals for how those draft conditions could be improved, we would like to hear them. So that might be the way in which you can make those responses to us.
So
anything further? No?
No.
Thank you very much, Naomi.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, and thank you to everybody who's given up their Monday afternoon to be here today. We appreciate your passion in making those submissions. This isn't the end of the process. We'll be keen to read everybody's submission, and as I said, anything you've given us today will go into the mix as well. This brings us to the end of the public meeting for the Mingara Recreation Club Senior Housing. Both Alex and I have appreciated all of the points that you've brought to our attention. I've mentioned that you can make a submission to midnight on Sunday. We'll add the full transcript of this meeting to our website in the next couple of days. And as we go through our considerations, any final outcome will be a document explaining how we've taken your views into consideration. I wanted to thank Alex O'Mara, my fellow commissioner, and to the members of the IPC team and their IT tech for setting up today's event and giving us this opportunity to hear from you. So thank you again, and thank you to everybody who was absolutely bang on time with their presentations. Thank you.